All right, so hopefully the last few people will just slowly log in as I'm chatting. Let me start by simply saying hello, welcome, namaste, good morning, good evening. I'm really glad you could make the time to join me today. My name is Annie Pettit, and I'm the Chief Research Officer at E2E Research. Today's webinar is going to be about 25 minutes, and I'll answer any questions you might have at the end. There's a Q&A box, so do feel free to type any of your questions in that box, and I will get to them at the end of the webinar. So, as you know, today I'm going to talk about journey mapping. And this is a technique I really love because it reminds me of just how different everyone is. We all have different things in our lives, kids, parents, school, work, hobbies, and we all have different things accessible to us. Cars, internet, cell phones, vision, hearing, mobility, all of those things affect how we make progress through the small and large journeys in our lives. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to journey mapping. So today's webinar is going to be a broad introduction of what it is, why we need it, and how we can use it. At its most basic level, journey mapping is a detailed description or illustration of a set of steps that people take to accomplish a goal. That map includes all the people we connect with, the things we touch along the way, the places we go along the way, and it even includes all the feelings, emotions, perceptions, all those intangible things that we experience along the way as well. Now, before the internet, journey maps were really quite simple. There were just a few steps or stages, and most of the details and processes were kind of obvious. But today we all have the internet in our pockets, and this has changed everything. Our cell phones, tablets, our computers, they've converted simple journeys into what I always call spaghetti. We're no longer bound by which stores are in walking or driving distance. We're no longer bound by talking to the one person we know who has experience with whatever the product or service is. We can find things on the other side of the planet. We can read reviews from millions of strangers, and we can go back and forth from channel to person and back again in just a few minutes. And if we're that desperate, we can even get products in our hands within 2 hours. So now that journeys are so complicated, it's really important to conduct comprehensive research to make sure we don't accidentally include any misconceptions and to make sure we've included all aspects of a journey, both the ones that are blatantly obvious and the ones that aren't quite so obvious. If you've worked with Google Analytics before, you'll be familiar with their version of journey maps. They do a basic job of illustrating the journeys people take on websites. So they don't show emotions or perceptions or the other channels people use, but it does show the behaviors people take on one specific website. So in this example, we can see the first place that people land on when they arrive on a website, along with how many people quit at that point or continued on their journey. Then we see that most people who started on the home page clicked over to look at a second page. Some of them looked at a healthcare case study, some looked at the automotive case study, and other people looked at a financial case study. Then we can even see that a lot of people continued on to a third stage. So in this case, the contact page. So this is a really nice, simple illustration of how common some journeys are and how rare other journeys are. Now, as I mentioned, this is very simple and it doesn't include a lot of the key components we need in order to take full advantage of it. You can use all of your creativity to design a map that works for you. There are no precise rules. So this is one example, just one example of what a journey map could look like. This is the experience of people who realize their vision is deteriorating as they age, and they're making progress through the steps required to solve the problem. In this case, buy glasses. So you can see that they journey from awareness of a problem to building knowledge about the problem, making a decision to purchase a solution, choosing a purchase channel, and so on. And you can also see that there are emotional highs and lows, those green and red thumbs up and thumbs down along the way as this persona, this segment of people, struggles with different aspects of the journey. The pain points, the happy points all along the way. And in the details, you can see which channels are used to access information, make decisions, and take next steps. It's a long process with a lot of touch points, but we can clearly see where the pain points are, and we can subsequently work towards resolving or supporting those issues as best as we can. Journey maps aren't just about buying things, though. So for us as marketers or brand managers or customer researchers, the customer journey is generally top of mind. But journeys aren't limited to shopping for cheese or cars. The healthcare system, they have a lot of journeys there. For example, what path do people take from when they realize they have a healthcare concern to when they complete their treatment? Similarly, for students or job seekers, what path do they take from when they realize they need to go to school or get a job to when they first attend their class or get onboarded at their new job? Their start and end goals are different, but the process of building a map is the same for everyone, for every journey. So now you have an idea of what a journey map can look like. Let's go over a few specific reasons for building journey maps. Now, of course, they are a fantastic way to identify the pain points that people experience along the journey. What makes people happy or unhappy? What's frustrating or annoying? What feels demeaning or rude? And along those lines, what is holding them back from being happy, joyful, and keen throughout that journey? So when you have a good journey map, you can identify all the steps along the way that need improvement, the steps that your brand needs to make the process quicker and easier for everyone, the barriers that need to be removed. Customer journey maps also help you make sure you capture the pain points and barriers that are unique to segments or groups of people. There will be certain points in the journey that some groups of people love and other groups of people just hate. So building maps for segments of people or personas can show you that, for example, the extroverts love the phone option while the introverts hate it, or that introverts love the self-checkout and extroverts hate it. If you're losing half of your customers because you're not accommodating a hatred of phones or hatred of the self-checkout, that's a big problem. And of course, as part of the mapping process, you'll be able to optimize your spend. You'll know which channels people use and when, and you can adjust how much you spend in each of those channels. Journey maps are also a really great tool for innovation. They can reveal gaps in the services or products that could be resolved by building something new. And along those lines, when you see what the gaps are, when you see where the paths seem to be headed, you can better plan for the future. The last thing I want to share about building journey maps is that facts are more important than factoids. It's easy to think you have a good grasp of things and that you understand the journey, but every brand manager, marketer, researcher, customer, they all have a different view into the journey. Your perceptions of the journey are affected by your roles, your life experiences, and your individual needs. Data-driven maps are always more accurate and all-encompassing than opinion-driven maps. So when you finally have a data-driven map in hand, you can be sure that everybody working on the brand has the same unbiased understanding of the journey. Now, one of the key things to remember when building journey maps is that there is no such thing as the journey map. In reality, every single person has their own journey map, the places and people they connect with to complete their journey. I might use TikTok, you might use Instagram, someone else might use Facebook. It's not practical to build or use hundreds of journey maps, but what we can do is identify the groups of people, the segments, the personas that we want to understand. So if you've already conducted a segmentation, you've probably identified 2 to 4 groups of people who you consider to be high value and worth targeting your products to. So what that means is you'll need to build 2 to 4 journey maps, one for each segment or persona. There is no single true journey, but there can be multiple relevant, useful, common journeys. Now let's get a bit practical and focus on the details of building a journey map. What steps do we need to take and what questions do we need to ask? Now the first step, and you'll see this no matter what type of research you're doing, is to start with a clear goal. It's always a good idea to go into a research project with a specific problem in mind. That way, when you come out the other end, you'll be ready to build an action plan. For a lot of people just starting out with journey mapping, that goal is probably something like, what does the journey map for Persona 3 look like? That's a good goal, but let's go a bit deeper than that. Think about what prompted you to even consider journey mapping. Did you notice you were losing a lot of customers at a certain point along the journey? Or did you notice a lot of people were filing complaints when they returned a product? If those are the kinds of problems you're seeing, maybe the goal of your journey map will be to uncover why consumers are dismissing your bank in favor of one with less attractive interest rates. Or maybe you need to figure out why patients aren't using the most effective medical treatments. Or maybe you need to figure out why students aren't applying to your top tier business program. Once you have your goals clearly outlined, then you'll need to identify some potential action outcomes. These could be anywhere in your business. It could be changing prices, changing messages, changing department structures, hiring or firing people, adding or removing social media channels. It really could be anything. The reason we want to outline these potential actions is because you need to know which things you can and can't change. At the end of the day, if you know you won't have the power to change certain things, there might be no point in doing that part of the research. It's a waste of your time and the participants' time to discover they want the ability to talk to a human being when you know that will never happen. Of course, you still need to build a solution for that problem. So you've got a goal and an action plan in hand. Now it's time to review any secondary data you can get your hands on. This could be industry reports, conference presentations, focus groups you did 5 years ago, anything at all that could potentially be relevant. What you're looking for in all of these materials is key indicators. What went wrong? What went right? Who was involved or who was not involved? What channels were and weren't used? What were the common complaints and what did people never complain about? You want to come out of this work with a good list of specific details, people, touch points, emotions. And with that list, you can identify the things that are most important and really need to be included in this research project. Along the way, you might even identify some points of confusion or curiosity, things that seem strange and don't make sense, but they're worth following up on. This data will really help you make sure you're accounting for as many components of the journey as possible. So now you've got your goals, your action plan, and your secondary research all put together. At this stage, it's time to identify the research method that will get you the answers you need. If you're a large brand with lots of customers, you'll probably benefit the most from a multi-method plan that incorporates both qual and quant techniques. This will help you make sure you've captured the depth and breadth of the journeys that your community experiences. On the other hand, if you're a small or a new brand, or if you have very few customers, you might be better served with a qualitative study. You just might not have the numbers to quantify every stage of the journey, but you can still create incredible depth of understanding. So just quickly, these are some of the research techniques you might consider for gathering journey mapping data. If you're using in-depth interviews, that will give you the opportunity to take a good deep dive into each person's unique journey and really flesh out each detail at every stage. Online communities give you the opportunity to understand a longer journey in real time. So you could run a community over a few days, weeks, or months and follow people along that entire journey. For example, you could invite people who are buying a car to join the community. Then you could ask them to share photos of the dealerships they visit, tell you when and where they see ads for dealerships, and maybe discuss with other community members the messages that were more or less impactful for them. So you can watch the entire journey unfold for 10 or 50 people. Observational research is another favorite technique, and this can happen in a variety of ways. One of the most basic formats is to just sit yourself in a public place and watch people as they choose a product. So you could see which products are picked up, put down, or never even considered. On the other side of things, you could get consent from someone and then join them on their journey for a shop along, to literally walk and talk with people as they make their journey. Finally, as always, questionnaires are a great way to quantify all of the qualitative research that you've done. It can really help you understand how many people choose various strategies within the journey. So how many people check online reviews or not, how many people get advice from their friends or not. So once you've identified the research method you're going to use, whether that's just interviews or interviews plus a community plus a survey, now you can start working on building the data collection tool. You'll need a discussion guide for interviews, a questionnaire for any surveys you'll need to do, and maybe a combination of discussion guide and questionnaire if you're using an online community. Building out this data collection tool requires a lot of care. Personally, I find it helpful to use some existing frameworks to make sure I cover as many of the key components as possible. So I'm going to share a couple of those frameworks with you, very basic, but you might find that you'll end up using both of them in a project. So this first framework, it's very straightforward. You're probably already familiar with it. The 5 W's and H. Those are the 5 key questions you can ask about things. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. So as I build a questionnaire or discussion guide, I rethink every question I've asked from the point of view of each of the 5 W's and the H. So for example, if I'm asking about a newsletter, I'll consider asking, Who reads the newsletter? Where do they read it? Why do they read it? What do they read in it? When do they read it? And how do they read it? And I won't always ask all of those questions, but I'll always consider asking each of those questions. This is how I make sure I can fill out all of the key details of the journey map. Here's another potential framework. You'll probably recognize this as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This model suggests that people work through their lives trying to meet a set of needs that range from basic human needs like food and water, all the way to the top where they try to be fully happy and accepting human beings. Even if you're unconvinced about the scientific validity of this model, it's still really helpful for our purposes. We can translate each of these needs into something that relates to the journey we're trying to describe. For example, for physiological needs at the bottom of the hierarchy, people are simply trying to access food and water. From a brand or product perspective, this could be, can people actually access my product or service? Is it available in their city? Is it available on the internet? Then we move up to safety needs. In this case, can they access our product or service safely? Do they have to cross a dangerous street to visit our store? Do they have to wade through pages of pornography and scam advertising to find it online? So once these safety needs are met, then it's time to think about love and belonging. Does our newsletter make them feel like they're part of a community? Does it make them feel that they're respected? Does it help them live their lives as a whole human being? So you might think that not all of these levels are appropriate for your product. It comes back to that old discussion about whether you really want a relationship with your soap. But remember this, if your soap only ever shows white people in the commercials, or if the messaging never includes mechanics and plumbers, you're telling a lot of people that you kind of don't really care about them, even though it's just soap. So once you've finished building your questionnaire or your discussion guide, it's time to stop and consider the complexity of the journey. Look through your questions and make sure people can talk about the steps they took first, second, and third. Make sure you're capturing the highs and lows of emotions that accompany each of those steps. Make sure they have a space to tell you about the steps that they revisited once, twice, multiple times, or alternatively, which steps they completely skipped over. Remember, journeys are no longer straight lines from consideration to purchase. Your data collection tool needs to accommodate journeys that look like a bowl of spaghetti. Alrighty, so we've built our data collection tool. We've collected the data from interviews, groups, communities, questionnaires, and we have built a map based on that data. Let's take a look at the next step. From my perspective, taking action is by far the most important part of the journey mapping process. Once you've identified pain points and barriers, you need to make decisions about how to act on them. At the same time, it's important that you don't lose the opportunity to identify the steps where you excel and ensure that those things are in place for everyone. If we drop our map into the filing cabinet without ever taking action, then the entire process is just a waste of everyone's time. So let's look back at the journey map I shared at the beginning. This is the journey for people buying their first pair of eyeglasses during middle age. As a result of our research, we've discovered what the journey looks like, what steps happen along the way, what information sources or channels are used along the way, and more importantly, we see those green thumbs up and red thumbs down. These tell us where people have had good and bad experiences. This is our chance to turn negative experiences into positive experiences and hopefully smooth out the experience for everyone. And we can also work on turning those positive experiences into amazing experiences. So, for example, the very first step of this journey is a big negative. People realize that getting older means their eyesight has deteriorated and now they need to buy eyeglasses. They see their friends and family carrying around extra pairs of glasses and it makes them feel really old. So as a company that sells eyeglasses, we need to empathize with that negative feeling and find ways to make it, as at a minimum, more bearable, more acceptable, but even better, to make it be a good thing. So one action we can take is to make sure we increase the font size on our marketing materials. We could even add a font size button to our web page in case people don't know how to do it on their computer by themselves. This is a very practical action that shows empathy for our audience. And thinking back to the Maslow diagram, this is an action we can take to ensure people can physically access our materials. So all along the bottom of my journey map, I'm going to add in actions that my team can take to improve the experience for my community. Now, most journeys have positive steps as well. And partway through this journey, this persona realized that bifocals can actually look cute. So as an action step for this stage of the journey, we need to make sure that the availability of cute eyeglasses is clear in our messaging. We can do this by sharing images of cute eyeglass options and creating messaging that reminds people about how eyeglasses let you be more creative in your personal style or fashion. These are actions we can take to ensure that this positive step in the journey continues to be positive for this persona. As you create action steps for each stage of the journey, you'll find that some are quite obvious and that you're already doing them, and that's totally fine. That's great. But do take the time to get creative. At each stage, think outside the box and come up with lots of alternative action items to counter or support each step of the journey. You don't have to do all of them, but you need to do your best to at least consider any action step that will improve the journey for your community. So I'll finish today's webinar by reminding people that journey maps continually change. The internet changed how we shop. Cell phones changed how we shop. User-generated product review sites changed how we shop. The pandemic, or as the panorama as I normally call it, changed the shopping patterns for nearly everyone. New technologies regularly appear that change how people do things. We need to make sure that we understand how and where these changes affect consumer journeys and really be prepared to address the pain points and the barriers that might be created as those changes happen. Fortunately, research is there to help us make some data-driven decisions. So thank you and Danyuad for your time and attention. I'm happy to take any questions if you'd like to pop them into the Q&A box. If you prefer, you're more than welcome to email any questions or comments to me and I'll reply to you afterwards. You'll see my email on the screen there, annie.pettit@e2eresearch.com. So it looks like It seems that I have covered every single detail about journey mapping. I don't see any questions in the box, which is fine. I'll watch for your emails afterwards. So I'll simply say thank you for joining me today. I hope you found some useful tidbits in there. So for now, goodbye and al yada.